So I'm excited about season 4. Trust and believe. Um, and thank you for even having me for the next season coming forward. And we're really gonna look forward to what God has in store because He has been doing a great job, thus far for this year. And Purpose has been the team, as I said some episodes before. Purpose has been continuing to be the eminent factor and team. So we're looking forward to what God has in store for next year. It's going to be great. So let's welcome Kimberly
Right.
as I read her bio.
Okay, hold on. Let's just add her to the stage, and there she is. Hi,
So,
Kimberly.
hi, Kimberly.
Hi.
Afternoon.
Wow,
Nice
it
to
is
have you here.
yeah, so wonderful to have you. And Gabriella is going to read out the introduction, and then we're going to jump right in because we have an audience that's waiting to hear from you, to be inspired by your story in your life. So we just can't wait. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for being with us.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you. We love you. And we're going to get into it in a moment. Gabriella?
Awesome. So, our wonderful guest that you all are seeing tonight is Kimberly J. Stevens. She's a Hall of Fame athlete turned author and resilience speaker who helps persons to find hope after heartbreak and purpose after pain. She often says, I'm both a Hall of Fame winner and a Hall of Fame loser. She has known the thrill of breaking records and the heartbreak of losing everything, including her son, years in children's hospital with her daughter, breast cancer, divorce, and financial collapse. Through it all, God kept teaching her one truth: don't stop showing up for hope. Her story isn't just about survival, it's about restoration, faith, and discovering that God never wastes a single storm. With a powerful personal story of resilience and a proven track record of success, she inspires organizations to take small daily steps that create big, measurable outcomes, both professionally and personally. So, without further ado, let's welcome our special guest tonight, Kimberly Stevens.
Hi. Thank you so much.
You're
All right.
welcome.
You're welcome, man. Gabriella, you go ahead.
Awesome. So, Kimberly, um, listening to your reading of your bio is a lot that you have faced, yeah? But before we dive into that, could you tell us a little bit about you, besides all the titles and the accolades? Who is Kimberly?
Wow. Well, who is Kimberly right now is a
Yeah.
health insurance broker. And that means during this very, very busy season of open enrollment, I am speaking with a lot of people about health insurance. And the news has been pretty difficult for people this year.
Yeah.
And so I've been spending a lot of time in the last couple of weeks and will for the next several more weeks helping people find alternative and more affordable solutions to their 2025 health insurance. So that's who I am very, very, most of the day, very many hours of the day right now.
Yes.
But other
Okay.
than that, I live in Orlando and I am a mom. I am a believer in Christ. I am a former athlete. I live alone right now with my cute little dog. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah,
Oh,
that's about
awesome.
it right now.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So you was an athlete. Let me hear a little bit about that. What kind of sport were you into?
So I was a swimmer, and my gosh, I started out and I couldn't swim a lap of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I tried out for swimming initially, the coach put a little asterisk by my name and said that he told my parents that he'd take me on the team, but I probably wouldn't last a week. And I ended up lasting about 17 years and setting some Big Ten
Wow.
records and winning some national titles. And then I swam masters later in my life as well. And so that was pretty amazing as well.
Awesome. Well, look at that. So you see, people put titles on us, but God at the end of the day gives us that victory always. So we were not limited by those things that persons speak over our lives. So you became such a great athlete. And you said that you were you consider yourself a Hall of Fame winner and a loser. What does that mean to you? What does that mean?
So, what's ironic is in 2016, I was inducted into the Hall of Fame at the University of Iowa for swimming. And it was one of the most wonderful weekends of my life. And about a month after that amazing celebration of my previous athletic experiences, my home was foreclosed on. And it was the pinnacle of losing everything. I lost the home that my kids grew up in. And for me, it was kind of the ultimate nail in the grave, if you will, of losing everything in my life. And so, you touched on it earlier when we were going through the introduction, but I have lost a lot in life. I've won a lot too. And so I say it sort of tongue in cheek. I'm a Hall of Fame winner. I'm a Hall of Fame swimmer, but I'm a Hall of Fame loser as well. I've lost my son. I've lost 4 years of my daughter's life in the hospital. I've lost my marriage. I've lost my health to breast cancer. I've lost my home and my finances. And so I've won a lot and I've lost a lot as well.
Yes, yes. Wow. Thank you for, you said all of that there. My pause was just raising. So thank you for being so open with us. And for our audience listening and who may say, wow, that's a lot of things that you would have encountered in life. Yes, you had your victories, but you also had those moments where, you really hit rock bottom. Can you tell us how that was for you emotionally and psychologically for persons who may be going through the same or something similar and might need that encouragement? What was it like for you, and what was that point where you said, what, I need to rise out of this?
Yes. And so I would tell you that there was not one point. There were many points.
Yeah.
And I learned that in the pool many years ago. And, a swimmer doesn't just dive in the pool and swim laps for 2 hours. A swimmer does different sets. And why that's important is because it taught me a coping mechanism later in life when I was losing. And I'm so grateful that I had swimming to teach me that, so that I learned perseverance at a very young age. And so in swimming, our coach might say, okay, dive in, you're going to do 10 200s every 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which means we would swim 8 laps of the pool. And then when 2 minutes and 30 seconds hit, we would push off the wall and do 8 more laps. Yeah. And so if we came in on 225, we got 5 seconds rest. We came in on 220, right? We got 10 seconds of rest. Mm-hmm. And 10 200s, that's a lot. That's 2,000 yards. That's over a mile. And to think about swimming all 10 of those repeats, as we called them, all at once was just, it wasn't possible. And so I learned to break it down. I learned that the one thing that I was doing right now was the most important thing. And there would usually be one thing in that one thing that I was focusing on, right? A 200 is 8 laps. And maybe I was working on the third set of 2 laps in those 8 laps. And that was where my focus was. And so I learned that I could break down my focus and concentrate on the one thing that mattered for that moment. And then once that was accomplished, I was free to take 5 seconds rest if that's when I got back to the well, yes, right? Yes. And then start over and then focus on that next thing. Mm. And so that really carried me through when my son passed away. And then I had 3 miscarriages. And then when my daughter was born, they said she had the same disease, and they said she wouldn't live a week. And there were days where I had to break down her life into 1 hour increments and just get through a special feeding in that 1 hour and then start it all over. And it was so similar to what I learned in the pool mentally that it just naturally became my process.
Yes. Wow. 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 That's a lot. And I would have never realized that something as swimming, a sport like swimming, could teach you so much about life. And, I really am grateful that God would have used you in that time. At the point they were saying, no, you wouldn't excel in swimming, but swimming has taught you how to navigate through life, how to excel, what to do in terms of
Yeah.
strategically break down your focus. And you have come here to really bring that encouragement. And I really hope that persons listening could use this story, could use your story
Yeah.
to overcome their challenge so they can break down their focus. you know um and even going forward, what is your hope? What really inspired you to say, what, I really need to be this beacon of hope for others? You would have gone through a lot and you are here today. And what would have really driven you to this point?
That's such a great question, but it really comes down to one thing. And when I wrote my story, I knew I was going to write a book when I was 8. I
Wow.
knew what it was about when I was about 40, but I never published my book until I was in my mid to late 50s. And I wrote it, and I thought, oh, I was telling my story, and but then after it was published, I really felt God telling me that He was calling me to show mercy to those who are wavering in their faith, and that's from Jude. And then I add this little sentence after it because I feel like God said the words to me after it, because you've been one who's wavered. And that wavering is painful. And
Yes.
I'm so grateful that I never ever really truly lost my one true hope, which is our Lord and Savior, and which is looking forward to the day when I meet Him face to face and I don't have any more reasons to cry and I don't have any more pain. And I started looking forward to that almost immediately after my son died. And I think that as believers, we sometimes take that out of our pain, and we forget what our one true hope is. And we forget where we're going because we get so distracted by what's hurting us right now. And so my deepest desire is to point people to that hope, so that this pain we know is temporary. And when we remember that ultimate hope, this pain can be just that much more bearable if we can remember that it's really only temporary.
Wow. Andy? I think the whole energy just shifted, um, in terms of her tone and that particular hope and story. Because a lot of believers really miss the mark sometimes. We really miss what really focus is at the end of the day. And I'm glad that you have been that encouragement and you really brought it back to our attention. A kind of ouch moment for us to realize where our hope really lies. And and what stood out to me just now there is what you said about it being temporary. A lot of times we think it's forever, that we will be going through this for a lifetime until, but no, it's temporary, because one day we will reach to that place where it's no longer no pain, no sorrow, no tears. And I really like and really am inspired by what you just said. So I really hope even the believers and even those who don't know Christ will at this point realize that, hey, there's a bigger hope out there and a really big purpose for you in whatever challenges that you are facing. Andy.
Thank you, Gabriella. Thank you so much, Kimberly. You already have inspired me personally, and your story is so close to one that brings divine inspiration, I think, because when I think about what you're saying with regards to the fact that they said you wouldn't last much as a swimmer, and then you went on to accomplish so much, it meant that there was something within you that God had placed as a purpose that you found, that you held on to, that you embraced, that you believed in, that you acted upon. And it created the catalyst for which your entire foundation with regards to focus on life became your reality. And what I like so much is that you said we sometimes too much focus on the pain and forget that there's a purpose behind the pain. There's a definitive meaning behind the pain. And that is awesome. So I'm going to put back the book on the stage. I'm going to ask you, this is the book you're speaking about, and why is it named Altered and spelled in that manner? What was the inspiration behind that?
Well, the altar, right? That's God. That's where we go and we lay our burdens, our sorrows. We lay them there.
Yeah.
And I'm about to cry because the apostrophe D is lowercase because that was about me.
Okay.
And I named it that because when we come to the altar, we're the ones who are changed. And the altar is about our relationship with God. And so altar is a play on words, right? To change.
Yes.
And so that's the spelling.
Wow. Thank you so much. We're going to take a break now, folks. And I'd like you to please encourage someone somewhere to log on as we continue to engage in this episode. But for now, I'd just like to share with us the thought of the week as we give Kimberly and, of course, Gabriella some time to catch their breaths. This has been an amazing first 15 minutes or so of this episode of Breaking Out of Depression entitled Purpose, Healing, and Transformation with Kimberly J. Stevens. So, thought of the week. The greatest gift of life is free, and so are the sunsets and moonlit starry skies. Yet we pay a price daily just to live. I'd like you all to see if you can figure that and kind of unravel it. But I'll repeat again, just for purpose. The greatest gift of life is free, and so are the sunsets and moonlit starry skies. Yet we pay a price daily just to live. That's a thought of the week, and we'll revisit the thought of the week at some time before our episode ends. So, right now, we're just going to go back and we're going to ask Kimberly to tell us. Kimberly, have you had the opportunity to speak to live audiences with regards to your experience on the book? And if so,
Yes.
what was it like, and what was the feedback or response you got from them when you shared your amazing story?
The feedback has been overwhelming and very encouraging. And I try to share honestly because I did not walk through all of that perfectly. And there were times when I walked away from God. There were times when I was angry. There were times when I questioned. Ultimately, though, God always had his hand on me and brought me through. And I try to be very honest about that because I feel like as believers, we don't hear a lot of authenticity about that. And as believers, when we walk through tough times, we're still humans. And we still hurt and question and feel bad. And I really believe that those painful moments strengthen our faith. But when people speak, often they don't talk about the questions. They talk about things like they've arrived and and then we, at least I know I do, I compare myself to them and I think, oh my gosh, I'm not like that. And right. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we condemn ourselves and we don't live in grace, and we judge ourselves even more harshly. And so I try very, very hard to be honest about my struggle, and how God just met me where I was.
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely important. And I'm glad you said that, because I'm thinking, if you are dealing with people who don't realize that God is able to reach them where they are at, Kimberly, how can you help them to take the proper steps to
Yeah.
get that kind of relationship with God, so that they realize, wait a minute, I don't have to do this by myself. There's help from God for me. But how can we help them to align themselves with God, so personally they get that experience like you had? How can we help them do that?
Yeah, I think really truly it's by being honest. It's by pointing out scriptures that are relevant.
Yeah,
There is a lot of scripture in my book, and probably the most important is the prodigal son.
yeah.
I have that story in my book, and I actually took a little bit of liberty and rewrote it about myself,
Hmm.
and how when I came back, God did have a party in heaven, and he
Right.
welcomed me back, even though I wasn't always faithful in the
Yeah.
journey.
Amazing. So we have a comment here, and I want to read it for you. It's from Wesley Ryan. He says, "Whoa, my God, lady, you have been through a storm of the highest magnitude. Wow. Something twisted in me listening to your journey. Thank God for his mercies through Jesus Christ. He has given you wings. Lady, may you God continue to lift you up."
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Wesley. We appreciate that. We appreciate you, my bro. What are your comments, Kimberly? He says you have wings.
Thank you.
All right. So here's the next question I have for you, Kimberly. When you look at what is happening in the world today, and you see that there's so much instability, and you talk about the experience earlier with the insurance part of the entrepreneurship that you're doing, in terms of what
Yeah.
people are seeking and looking for, what are some of the challenges that you think that people are facing right now, and that can make it really difficult for them to zero in and hold on to something that is stable, purposeful, and fulfilling like you have done?
My fast answer is not always my best answer, but the thing that's really coming to my mind is something that I say all the time to myself, and I say it all the time to people that I'm training to sell insurance, and that is to look for solutions.
Mhm.
And I think, and again, I think it goes back to training in swimming.
Yeah.
Is I think that we have so much going on right now. If we look at the big picture, it's just too much to take in.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's there's chaos everywhere we look, and but if we look for a place that is in our circle of influence, we can look for a solution in a small place. And um, I remember years and years ago, I had a manager when I was in pharmaceutical sales, and he drew a bunch of dots on a big piece of paper. And then he drew me in the center. And then he drew a little circle around me. And my circle had about 3 dots in it. And the paper had about 300 dots on it, literally. And he said, which dots can you influence? And really, it was just in that little circle. And so something that I tongue in cheek say to myself often is, that's not in my circle, and let it go.
Yeah.
But focus on making what's in my circle better.
Yes. Wow. That is so deep and so profound. Thank you, Kimberly. So I just want to share with us a video right now. And when I share the video, you can give us some information with regards to what is the philosophy or the meaning behind this particular video. So here we go.
There were a lot of naysayers. You probably heard some of the same skepticism from your peers and family that I heard from my peers and family. They said a lot of really hurtful things. I heard comments like, "You do know Alcatraz is a prison nobody ever escaped from, right? You know the water's freezing. You know there's sharks. What if the waves are too big? Why would you put yourself through that? You're insane." I heard it all. But what I was really hearing was their doubt and their fear for me. They were warning me. They meant well, but they didn't understand why I needed and wanted to do this race. And if you told your friends and family that you're starting your own business here at Compass, you probably heard something similar. You might have heard, "Isn't insurance sales really risky? Isn't it shady? What if it doesn't work? Why would you leave a steady paycheck for a commission-only job? What if you failed?" I want to remind you that your decision filter tool is useful here too.
All right. All right.
Wow, there's a lot in that.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay. So that is a training that I give for new agents who come into our agency. And I centered the whole story around a swim race that I did when I was in my mid-40s. And I chose to swim Alcatraz. And that race is a little scary. They literally put us in boats. There were 2,000 swimmers. They put us in boats and they took us out to Alcatraz Island. We jumped into the water. They sounded the starting gun and then we swam to the shore. And the waves that day were about 9 feet and the water was 54 degrees. And I was terrified at one point. I couldn't find any other swimmers, and they had given us one instruction. When you're out there in the middle of the bay, you're surrounded by fog. You can't even see the land. So you don't really know where you're supposed to swim. And they had a boat out there, and it was pulling an orange buoy. And that orange buoy was the thing we were supposed to follow. And so find and follow the orange buoy, right? And so that whole story culminates into four tenets. We decide, we do, we discern, and we depend. Okay. And does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? And so that decision filter that I was talking about, our agents are brand new. They come in and they've made a decision to try insurance sales, but have they made a decision to be successful at insurance sales? And so we talk about that, and then we talk about do. Do is easy. You don't try, you do. You show up and you do, right? In the race in Alcatraz, I was out there in the middle of the bay. So I either did or I sank.
Yes.
And right. And so, that choice was easy. And then discern, and that's the decision filter, is the best decision filter I know is from the movie The Boys in the Boat. Mm-hmm. And they were not a very good rowing team. and I won't ruin the movie for everybody because it's a great movie. It's one of my favorites. But they started asking themselves when they were in and out of the boat, will this make the boat go faster? And they ran every decision that they made through that filter. And so I coined the term decision filter because I realized that when I was growing up and I was swimming, I had a decision filter about everything I did. Will this make me faster in the pool? And I filtered everything through that. When my daughter was dying and 6 hours without medication would take her life, I had a decision filter. Is this going to keep my daughter alive? Right? And so discerning what is the next best step, the next best thing to do in order to reach our ultimate goal is the decision filter.
Wonderful. Yeah. So we have some comments, and Gabriella, this one is for you, of course.
Good night, everyone. God doesn't give us more than we can bear, and He equips us in measure of faith and strength to overcome any situation that will be faced with. We are stronger than we think, but with God, all things are possible.
All things are possible.
Coming from Bernadine S. Woods. Wow. Mommy, I've got another one for you, Kimberly. Stand by. This is from Gracie Vince now, #1 supporter. And she says, you are a very strong person. God's got your back, sis. Spread the good news. Wow.
Thank you, Gracie. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Gabriella, over to you now again.
No problem. Gracie, in reading your bio, I would have read about Extend the Wave, that beautiful movement. Could you tell us a little bit about that movement?
Thank you for asking about that because it is my ultimate joy. And wow. So tomorrow is my daughter's 32nd birthday. My daughter is Victoria Faith. Victoria Faith was diagnosed when she was a few days old with the same disease that killed her brother. And they told me that she wouldn't live a week. And we spent 4 years in and out of the hospital in comas and life flight helicopters and just insane circumstances, very unstable for her life. But on October 30th, 1997, she was given the gift of a 4-year-old child's liver. And that liver transplant, that liver could make the enzyme that she couldn't make in her healthy liver. And so that liver transplant obviously transformed all of us. We spent a long time catching her up emotionally, physically, and academically after 4 years in the hospital. But she caught up, she did the work. She is Victoria Faith. She is absolutely amazing. And she lives in Kansas City, and she's married and owns a home and has a great job and has my two grand dogs. And she's just really a very lovely, lovely person. And when she turned 30, that was a milestone that we just did not ever anticipate without just beyond miracles. The greatest miracles ever. We did not ever imagine that she was going to live to be 30 when we got that diagnosis. And so together with my son and my daughter, we started Extend the Rose. And now we have a board and we're actually going national. But Extend the Rose is an organization to bring hope back to children and families in the hospital. But what's really beautiful is that God is using that mission now to bring hope back to everyone, still focusing on children and families in the hospital, So we have some amazing and just awesome projects in the pipeline that are coming up. And can I tell the rose story?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I know I'm talking forever.
Yes. All right.
No.
The
Yes.
reason that we're called Extend the Rose is about a rose that was given to me by God, and that brought hope to my heart. And so when my son passed away in 1992, I had these empty hands that were supposed to be holding a baby, and my hands were supposed to be doing something that was nurturing and mothering, and they were just empty, and it was very painful to me. I just noticed my hands and their emptiness. And so I had been given yellow roses when my son was born, and they were beautiful. And so when he passed, I decided to plant a yellow rose bush outside my front door. And I nurtured that yellow rose bush and watered it and fertilized, and it did not bloom. And I nicknamed it Charlie Brown after the Christmas tree. And so Charlie Brown was just a pathetic rose bush for many months. And then in late April, I noticed it had a teeny tiny little bud. And I got really hopeful. And Mother's Day was approaching. And it was my first Mother's Day after my son died. And I didn't have other children. And Mother's Day was just something I dreaded. And people didn't know how to treat me. They didn't know if they should call me a mom. It just was a very painful day. And you know that little rose bush bloomed on Mother's Day?
Wow.
And then that rose bush pretty much went dormant again for a while. And the next rose that we got was on Father's Day. And I gave that to my husband, and we literally both just wept at God's goodness. And we knew that God was telling us through that rose that he saw us and he celebrated us as parents, and that he cared. And then that rose literally did go dormant for a good year and a half. And there was a tiny bud on it when I was 9 months pregnant with my daughter. And I just kept looking at that bud saying, oh, this baby's not going to be born until that rose blooms. And so I literally was going to go outside and put a hairdryer on the bud to get the bud to bloom so I could have the baby, because my belly was getting so big. And November 19th came and went, and my daughter was born, and that rose did not bloom. And when my daughter was about 4 days old, I remember looking at the rose bush and saying, wow, God, you missed it. The rose didn't bloom. And I remember being a little disappointed. And it was about that same day that we got the phone call that my daughter had citrullinemia, and we needed to get her back into the ICU. And so we took her back into the hospital. We spent 11 days in the ICU. Did not know if she would ever come out, or, if we would lose her too. And we were discharged, and we got to go home. And the very day that we got home, the rose was waiting for us.
Andy, I'm not prepared.
Yeah. My goodness.
Andy, what are you doing us? What are you doing us today? Wow.
Listen,
Wow.
I have goosebumps all.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
Wow.
And so
Wow.
our organization is called Extend the Rose, because we want to bring that same hope that the rose gave me into hospitals and for children and families. So our goal is to help people feel seen, heard, and celebrated in the same way that that rose helped me. feel seen, heard, and celebrated.
Wow. What an amazing story. So touching, so inspirational. I have to kind of hold myself together so I could say what I want to say.
No, I thought it was me alone.
No, no, no,
I have
no,
been,
no. And that doesn't happen very often. So, okay, we're going to take a break, folks.
please.
Emotional video that we want to share with you. So, Kimberly, just take a breath. We'll be right back
Okay.
with you.
Thank you.
And Gabriella as well will be right back with you. This is from Amanda Blackwood. She was a guest on season 2, and she is a human trafficking survivor, and she endorses our program. So here's a video. Stand by.
I just wanted to take a moment to tell you all about this amazing podcast that I had the absolute privilege of being on recently. Oh my gosh. Andy Charles is such an easy person to talk to. It's such a wonderful podcast to listen to. I love these guys. I know that I'm not going to have nearly as many opportunities to speak to them as I wish I could, but the program, Breaking Out of Depression, is really doing exactly that for so many people. It's been a great thing to be a part of. It's wonderful to see the progress of this show as it goes along. I'm just really blessed to have been a part of this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amanda. We hope that we're going to be able to have her on for season 4. Yeah, it's going to make a second trip back. So, Kimberly, I'm looking at your story, and there's so many amazing parts, so many amazing sequences to it. But I want you to tell us how important was your personal relationship with God in the moments and times when you felt that you were angry with Him, you wanted to give up, you didn't feel as if maybe He was listening to you, but you held on, you kept the faith, you kept going. What was that connection like with you and Him that you can now help others to probably arrive at, because you have been there, done that, and now you know it works for you?
Yes, so many different moments, and I had so many different reactions. But probably the sweetest story is right after my son died. I was very close with God right after my son died because I was so broken. But then as time went on, I started feeling more lonely, more angry, and I started really separating myself from God. And why I think this story fits really well with your audience is because I really went into a deep depression. And I lived in San Diego, where the sun shines all day, every day, and the sky is always blue and temperature is always perfect. And
Yeah.
I couldn't even see the sunshine. And I thought about driving places and driving my car off a very high bridge. And there are a lot of those in San Diego. But then I thought, oh, with my luck, I won't die. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to give up. And, you know, God is just so creative. So we were in this really amazing Sunday school class, and there was this woman named Lynn. And one day she came up to me and she said, I heard you got a puppy. And I said, yes. And that was an attempt to give me something small to nurture. And he was wonderful, but even he couldn't take away my pain, right? And so Lynn said, well, we're thinking about getting a dog. Can I come see your dog? And that was actually, I learned later, Lynn doesn't like dogs. And that was her excuse to become friends with me, literally. And so she came over and she met my puppy. And then she said, God has put you on my heart, and I'm going to call you tomorrow. And I said, okay. And then she called me the next day. And then the next day she said, God has put you on my heart, and I'm going to call you tomorrow. Well, she was not 100% honest. God put me on her heart as her burden. And she knew she was going to call me every single day. But she also knew that if she was going to call me every single day, that I would be like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. And I would have pushed her away. So she was absolutely brilliant in her obedience to what God had called her to do. And every day she would ask me two questions. Do you love God today? And I would say, no.
Wow.
And then she would say, do you think you can love him tomorrow? And I would always say, maybe.
Yeah.
And I never said no to the second part of the question, which I think was really important, because I was leaving the door open for God to do something.
Wow. I love
and
that.
that went on for 8 months. And Lynn called me every day and asked that question. And finally, one day, I had enough of myself, actually. And I went into a chapel and I said, okay, we're going to duke it out, God. And we're going to have this conversation, because you owe me some answers. And I really believed God owed me answers. And so I said, God, why? And I sat in the chapel. No answer. And so I said, and there was nobody in the chapel, thank God. I said, God, why? And there was no answer. And I sat there and I started sobbing. And then I yelled it again through my sobbing. And as soon as it was out in my sobbing, I literally felt God say to me, I don't know if I heard him audibly or not, but I felt him say, Kimberly, if I sat down here next to you right now and I told you my reasons, would they take away your pain? And I had to honestly say, no, they won't.
Yeah.
And so then the next question is, then why am I asking why? If the answer is not going to help me, why am I asking why? And so it was at that moment that I invited God into my pain. And I got these verses that I sort of take out of context, but now we see in a mirror dimly. Right? I don't get it. I don't know why these things happened to me, because I don't have a full view of heaven. I don't have God's eyes.
Yeah.
And I'm not capable of seeing what God sees. But one day, face to face, on that day when I meet him face to face, I'm not even going to have to ask the questions.
No.
It's just going to be okay. It's going to be better than okay. I'm not going to be crying. I'm not going to have pain. I'm not going to have the questions. And there will be no more crying or sorrow or tears or pain.
Yes.
The old is gone. The new will have come.
Oh, yes.
And so I take all those verses and I equate them back to that day in the chapel. And I don't really ask God why anymore. Now I just ask for his peace to come and break down whatever it is that I'm putting up so that I cannot see, feel, touch his healing. And when I was doing that in such a real way, God sent an angel with skin on named Lynn to ask me those questions every single day. And I think that's so important as believers. If we know people who are depressed and going through a hard time, we need to be Lynn's. We
Yeah.
need to, right? We don't need to ask them what they need. We need to just invite ourselves in for one more moment.
Yes.
And meet them in that moment, and then invite ourselves in for another moment. And keep doing that until God can bring in healing.
Gabriella, she did it again.
Listen to me, Andy. And
She
I think
did
she's so calm and collective, but she's kneeling and she's hitting us emotionally, psychologically. Wow.
Folks,
Um,
Gabriella, let me get this out.
Yeah.
I just hope that people understand and appreciate how important the things that Kimberly just shared with us are
Yeah.
for our personal well-being, our personal relationship with God. From that emotional and that spiritual perspective, to realize that there are specific roles that God has for us to play in this whole scenario that is called life. And instead of asking the questions, God, why me, why? Just look at the fact that He has given us an opportunity to be there for each other. She's talking about the power of the community and people recognizing that they have a specific role that fulfills a purpose that God has put us there for. Lynn recognized and she obeyed. And then Kimberly understood it when she think, or maybe she heard that voice asking her, well, even if you knew why, would that remove the pain? And the answer is obviously no. So then why focus on the pain and not focus on me? Because I'm the only one that can take the pain away. And that is so awesome. Awesome. Okay,
It
Gabrielle.
really is. It really is. It really is, because she has said so many, many things there that was really solid, especially the community part of things. And while Lynn might be one person, she was that community for her and that support, and she did not give up. You know, sometimes we may try to reach out and we realize we're not getting the feedback that we want. And we say, okay, well, maybe they don't want the help, or they don't think we care, and they stop. But Lynn was persistent, and that is what made the difference, being consistent. So sometimes we might think, what should I tell this person, or how do I approach? Just being there, sometimes you don't need to say anything. Lynn was there and was being that support that she needed until God opened that door. And the other thing that struck me as well was the fact that she spoke the second question. She didn't say no. She said maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe. So she left that. So even though she was going through her pain and all her turmoil and all that grief that she was going through, she still left that little door for God to do something. And it kind of contradicts how we start off this program, because we were talking about Angie, who talk about why, why me. But here Kimberly is saying, don't worry about the why. Don't question God about the why, because it's not going to change anything. But she realized, you know what? God had purpose, and He continued to have purpose for her, and he really enveloped her in her love. And in that questioning God, why. A lot of persons, I know, and Angie, thank you for sharing that moment when you were in that church. You were able to really have that breakthrough, because sometimes we try to keep it together. A lot of persons try to keep it together, and it's 8 months you went along with it until you say, what, Lord, I need to face it with you. Let's have this conversation. And you really brought yourself to that place. And sometimes persons don't allow themselves to go to that place of being that vulnerable with God. And so, thank you for being so vulnerable and open and honest, because sometimes as Christians, we really don't be open about these topics. And, someone earlier said, you are so strong. But you really wasn't strong at the point. You're letting us know you went through depression, you were feeling suicidal, you went through a whole host of emotions before you got to this place. It didn't just happen overnight and saying, okay, Kimberly is this strong person. And I know even right now you're being very strong for us here. And I know it's a lot going through your mind as well. But God is doing a fantastic job in your life. And I really thank God that He placed you into this program tonight, because it's really an inspiration for me. Yes, Andy. You didn't prepare me this much. All right.
All right.
Wow.
So,
This would have been a fantastic. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if I have enough adjectives to really describe some of the emotions that I felt earlier, but I'm going to remember this
Yes,
quite a long time. When
definitely.
I want you to imagine, Kimberly, that you have the opportunity, and I always ask this question to all my guests as much as I possibly can, all our guests, as a matter of fact. If you have the opportunity to speak to the entire world, it's just about 8 billion people. You have this megaphone and everybody can hear you. And this is the opportunity that you have to tell them something that you know they need to remember and will not forget. What would you say to them, Kimberly? What would you share with them?
It's my 3 words: never give up.
Ah, I love that. I love that. And folks, I hope that you really understand how powerful those 3 words are. Never give up. And let me add to it, never give in. Never give up and never give in.
Yeah.
Okay, so Wesley he says, that's the connection of the author and finisher of our faith. We just have to say thank you, Father. She got that. God bless you. There you go, Kimberly. You keep touching lives.
Thank you.
Yes, wonderful. Okay, Gabriella.
Kimberly, what in terms of your legacy, right? In terms of all that you have done and continue to do, what legacy would you like to leave behind? What story, what work, and what movement would you like to leave behind? What would you like persons to, achieve after or learn from you going forward?
Now I am
Any next
crying.
Yeah.
Oh, finally got her.
I'm praying and asking God to bring the right people to help us make this Extend the Rose movement global, essentially. And we have some friends who are giving roses and some cards to children and families in San Diego over Thanksgiving. I'm in Orlando, so now we're coast to coast. But there's a couple of things. I want to encourage people to never give up, that with God, everything is possible. And so we have 2 things on our website right now that I am really praying God will grow tremendously. And they are focused on bringing hope to people who need it, and not just children and families in the hospital, but with them in mind as the catalyst. And so at our events, we've been giving away roses to parents, and then we have a card that we give them. And I just want to read it really quick, if that's okay. The card says, "Dear friend, years ago, after my son Braden passed away, a single yellow rose bloomed on Mother's Day. On Father's Day, another appeared. When my daughter Victoria came home from the hospital after a long fight for her life, that same rose bush bloomed again. It was a sign of hope I will never forget. Every Mother's Day since, a yellow rose has found me. It's God's quiet way of telling me I am seen, I am not alone. Today, this rose carries that same message to you. May it remind you, even in the hardest moments, your love matters, your fight matters, and you are never alone. With love and hope, KimberlyJStevens." And we put that on our website. And for Giving Tuesday, we're really asking people to come onto our website, extendtherose.org, print off that card, pair it with a rose, and give it to somebody that you know that needs to hear that message. You matter. And so that's one thing that we're doing. Another thing that we're doing is, and it's brand new. And if you go on there right now, you'll see that it's brand new and kind of lame, but it's not going to be lame for long. So Extend the Rose is going to the Rose Parade on January 1st, 2027. With God's blessings, we still need a sponsor. But when we found out we were going to be in the Rose Parade, I got in touch with Katy Perry's team and asked if we could use the song Roar for our float, because the kids picked that song as their fight song a lot of times. I'm a champion and you're going to hear me roar. So our float will roar down Colorado Boulevard. And so I wanted to create a roar gallery. And so on YouTube, you can find our roar gallery. It has 3 roars in it, but it's going to have 1 million. And the roar is a message. And so I did the first roar on the 28th anniversary of my daughter's transplant, which was just a couple weeks ago. And celebrating goodness and hope and never give up. So it's always a never give up message, whether it's the baristas at Starbucks, like standing behind the coffee pot saying cheers, never give up. And my goal is that we will have a place where people can go when they're feeling down, and they can watch 1 million roars of just roars of positivity, so that they can flood their lives with good things. Not everything on social media is good, encouraging, or of God. So this is a place where we will have people upload those messages, and then people who need to hear those messages can come and just keep clicking and clicking and clicking on positivity. And so that's on our website now. It's called the Hope in Motion section, which is HIM. And underneath that section, there's the rose card. So please go on there and print it off, extendtherose.org, and give it to somebody. Or if you want to roar, put a roar up there. We would welcome your roar, 10 to 59 seconds.
Wow.
Okay, so we have to wrap up.
I'm sorry, I'm taking.
I'm so sorry. We have to wrap up. But I want to share again the thought of the week as you see it roll across the screen. The greatest gift of life is free, and so are the sunsets and moonlit starry skies. Yet we pay a price daily just to live. And there are 2 quick comments that I want to show. Gracie Vincent says, so long we have faith, we have the faith in God, everything is possible. God is the healer. And Wesley says something that maybe we can get in trouble. There's something called copyright, Wesley. Andy, we can copy that. Maybe I'll have
You can print it directly from our website, copy it, and do whatever you want with that card. Please give it to people. That's what it's there for.
So I'm going to put up some information there, Kimberly, so they can see it. Maybe they can get the information across to your website, and we can copy that beautiful and wonderful information. And then the icing on the cake is Bernadine Woods.
I love it.
4 roses.
Unfortunately, we can get a yellow one, but yes.
And then Grayson Vincent says, love this episode. Wow.
Thank you, Gracie.
Love as well. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, parting words, Gabriella.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. It was really a blessing. Thanks for making us so emotional, and we would definitely encourage and inspire, and we hope that we could see you another time in our program, and that you could touch more lives, and all God's blessing going forward in all your legacy and your hope for what you have in store for persons. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kimberly, we're gonna log off online, but we'd like you to stick around for just 2 minutes after we go. And We really want to express our gratitude and our heartfelt thanks for you being on this show. It was
Yeah.
absolutely awesomely inspiring and amazing. I like to use words like that because I want people to really understand how much we appreciate you taking the time to be with us and to share your story and be so vulnerable and so real. And yes, you
Yeah.
touched and you moved and you shook. And I think God has put you in this place for this particular reason at this time for this purpose. All right. So thank you so much. And for now, folks, remember,
Thank you.
keep doing all that you need to do so that we can continue to break out
Out
of
of
depression.
depression.
Thank you, Wesley. Thank you, Bernadine. Thank you, Gracie,
Thanks,
and all the others.
everyone.
We love you. Godspeed. God bless. Bye for now. Until next time.